Now we're suspending, expelling, or even arresting kids for the smallest misbehaviors. This trend is called the school-to-prison pipeline.
6-year-olds being arrested for assault because of a temper tantrum.
The difference with a restorative justice process or approach, philosophy, is that we want you, we love you, and we want you here.
So we're all part of a larger community and that we are responsible for that community.
We have become expert in harming, and history is asking us to become experts at healing.
Production of Immense Possibilities is made possible by the generous support of the Earth and Humanity Foundation, Wendy Selden, Rogue Co-ops, a community-centered collaboration among the Ashland Food Co-op, the Grange Co-op, Rogue Credit Union, and the Medford Food Co-op, Cliff Bar and Company, Elizabeth York, and these additional members of the Immense Possibilities Community Builders Circle.
Welcome to our weekly visit with people who are creating immense possibilities for healthy communities, solutions to all kinds of challenges. For a while now, we've been tracking the growth of a new trend firmly rooted in old traditions called restorative justice. It shifts the emphasis from punishment to restoring the wholeness of victims, offenders, and the communities around them. Tonight, we'll see how restorative justice is disrupting a painfully obvious sequence that is costing us billions and packing our prisons without making anyone safer or helping anyone repair their lives. And square one of this sequence is in our public schools.
When a kid gets in trouble at school, we used to send them to the principal's office. Now we're suspending, expelling, or even arresting kids for the smallest misbehaviors. This trend is called the school-to-prison pipeline. There are pipelines all across the country. Nationwide, as many as 95% of out-of-school suspensions are for nonviolent misbehaviors like these. In one town, the cops were called to break up a fight, a water balloon fight. When you crack down harshly on kids for minor infractions, you're telling them one thing: you are a problem. Suspending or expelling a kid increases his or her chance to drop out of high school. And we know high school dropouts are 3.5 times more likely than high school graduates to be arrested in their lifetime. Sending a kid to juvenile detention center also makes crime more likely in their future. Kids who are incarcerated are 67% more likely to be back in jail by the age of 25 than similar kids who didn't go to prison.
Who's working to dismantle that pipeline? A growing number of restorative justice pioneers, none more widely respected than Fania Davis, Executive Director of Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth, or RJOY. Fania, welcome to Immense Possibilities.
Thank you so much.
You know, Fania, the results of this work in a fairly short time have been so dramatic as measured in reductions of violence and expulsions and suspensions. I'm wondering why every school in the country isn't jumping on this eagerly, why it's not virtually universal across the country. What's in the way here of adopting restorative justice programs?
A lot of teachers and principals have a reflexive response. When a child curses out a teacher, that violates the rule against cursing teachers, so the reflexive response is to kick the child out. It's to suspend them for 5 days. Ours is a system that harms people who harm people to show that harming people is wrong. You know, when we kick a child out of school for cursing out a teacher, we're causing more harm because they're going to be without adult supervision. And without adult supervision, they're more likely to be incarcerated. I mean, we've even had principals who say, once we show them the statistics, you know, how restorative justice reduces suspension rates significantly, it increases test scores, lowers dropout rates, lowers or eliminates violence, then the principal will say, yes, bring that program to my school. However, if there is a fight between 10 kids 2 weeks later, the principal's response, reflexive response, will be to suspend those children. And the principal, when questioned, will say, well, there's pressure from family members, there's pressure from the community, there's pressure from teachers, so I had to suspend.
Give us a sense of what 2 or 3 of your main programs look like on the ground.
So it's a very different kind of space. We share personal stories with one another. So there is a connection where there's a mutual recognition of one another's humanity. And when these circles are done on a regular basis, proactively, then when some issue arises, some conflict arises, then the children are already used to sitting in circle and listening to one another and empathizing.
Typically, what is it that these kids hear in the circle that have a profound effect on them and change behavior?
We have been having circles between youth and the mayor and youth and law enforcement officials. And when the youth responded in that closing round, one said, I felt heard. I felt like my voice was heard. And then in another circle, at another school, there was a similar response at the end of the circle. This girl said, well, I enjoyed the circle because the teachers and the principal and the other adults weren't trying to act like they were smarter than me. When we do these circles, the point is to create a space where everyone's voice matters as much as the next person's, whether it's a presiding juvenile judge, whether it's a chief of police, or a 14-year-old child. We say we leave the titles outside the door.
Fania, I'm very intrigued by the conversations in circles you're describing between minority youth and police and city officials, because the nation is kind of throwing up its hands right now. What do we do about this violence we're seeing and these difficulties between police and communities? Tell me what you heard from police or some of the adults that you brought into these circles, people in positions of authority.
The mayor says, I'm here to listen. You are the experts on what needs to be done to make your life better, to make your experience in the city of Oakland better. So this was done in the circle with the officers at Bunch High School. And then there was a round of questions after an icebreaker, after the opening ceremony, there's a round of questions. And one of the questions was, share a story about a time when police caused harm to you or your family. So, of course, the youth had lots of stories to tell. But surprisingly enough, some of the officers did as well. And other questions were asked, like, why does it take so long for you to respond when we dial 911? Why does it take so long for you to arrive in our neighborhoods? So the conversation got deeper and deeper. There was much more laughter. There was much more of a sense of connection. And they decided that the police team, basketball team, would play the youth basketball team at the school. And they, in fact, did and still do play basketball together. Usually the kids win, I have to say. Not only that, some of the officers ended up developing a mentoring relationship with some of the youth. And so today, there is very little, if any, difficulty between the police and the children at the school. Our school culture has become more and more punitive in the last decades, parallel with the rise of the prison industrial complex. So in the last 2 years, schools began to resemble prisons. No windows, searches, metal detectors, presence of police, a heavy police presence, kids being arrested for having an adolescent milk fight in the cafeteria, being arrested for assault and battery, or another child writing on a school desk with erasable ink being arrested for defacing or destroying public property. 6-year-olds being arrested for assault because of a temper tantrum. So this is what we're up against. We are saying, instead of responding to an original harm with more harm, let's Let's heal the harm. How about trying a healing response that restores the damage to relationships between people and schools?
What is the most important reward that you get from this work?
You know, when you have a child who has been through the 11th grade, arrested multiple times, suspended 150 times, when they come to a restorative justice school in the 11th grade, and for the first time feel a sense of family, feel that the teachers care about them instead of wanting to get them in trouble and exclude them and suspend them, when they feel seen, when they feel heard, and the miracle that happens, they thrive. They end up graduating. Some end up being valedictorians. And just to see that transformation and to see them thrive and grow, you know, like a beautiful, healthy plant or tree is very, very rewarding for me.
Let me ask you this, Fania. What is the immense possibility of restorative justice?
We in our culture have become very good at doing harm, whether it's incarcerating our youth, damaging the environment, and waging war. We have become expert in harming. And history is asking us to become experts at healing if we are to have a future. And the immense possibility of restorative justice is that it offers us a toolkit. And I think that is the immense possibility. It can usher in an era where we are present to one another in healing ways.
Fania Davis is Executive Director of RJOY, Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth. Fania, thank you for your work and thank you for coming to tell us about it.
Thank you so much. And thank you and all the best to Immense Possibilities.
A lot of the time the message that kids hear is you got to follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, you can't be a part of this community. You know, because the loudest thing a kid hears when they hear that message is, you don't want me here. The difference with a restorative justice process or approach, philosophy, is that we want you, we love you, and we want you here. And we want to figure out how to make it work and how to bring you back into our community.
The leader of school-based restorative justice in Southern Oregon is the nonprofit organization Resolve, and I'm pleased to have with us Colleen O'Sullivan, who is the coordinator of school-based restorative justice practices for Resolve, and Ember Wolf, a student at Phoenix High School who's involved in restorative justice. Welcome to you both. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Colleen, tell us about the heart of your work at Phoenix High School.
We have dialogues. So if there's a conflict or there's something happening, we sit down and we prep everybody and we bring them together in a room and really talk about what happened, how they were harmed, what needs to happen to make it right, and how we're going to move forward.
How does it work? What would we see if we walked in?
So if there's something happening between a teacher and a student and there's just this miscommunication and their relationship is elevating, it's talking to the student about what's happening and getting to the root of what they really need. They have to accept that the harm that they caused and understand that they had. And so that's a lot of the work that I'm doing this year, is I'm slowing it down and really explaining what responsibility means and how we take responsibility. I think a big misconception that it's just talking, when in fact it's actually looking the person that you've harmed in the face and coming to an agreement, making it right, and then taking action to not let it happen again.
So Ember, you are a junior at Phoenix High School. Would you share with us a little bit of your personal experience that led you into restorative justice programs?
The first one was I had a physical altercation with the girl, and we sat down and talked with her and me and our parents, and we did just like talk about what happened. We talked about what happened and how we can make it better and like go forward with things instead of just talking about it and then like suspending us and then that's it.
So you got in a fight with another
Yes,
girl?
I did.
And what did you think? Did you think that you were facing suspension or some kind of stiff discipline at first?
Yeah, actually I started crying like right after because I thought I was gonna get in like bunches of trouble. I did get in trouble, I had punishment, but what we went through was a lot more helpful than what it would have been like last year or something.
Well, I'm thinking that a lot of this is a shift. You get in a fight with somebody, and the first thing most people think is, I'm right, they're wrong, they're a bad person, I shouldn't get any blame, here are all the good reasons that I fought with, and that kind of thing. Yeah. And I was just wondering if your experience took you away from anything like that into kind of a broader understanding where they were coming from.
We both took blame for it. Like, we did try to blame each other. There was some disagreement sometimes, but we both took accountability for what we did.
As the other girl was talking, was there any point where you went, oh, some of this is clearer to me, what happened here?
Yeah, I mean, I think she took what I said like to mind, and then I took what she said to mind, and that it's how she can take what I'm like doing or saying wrong and the same for her. And I think that we both had that moment.
How do you think you're different now than you were a couple years ago?
I think that I've improved a lot with being in problems or issues and just not having problems with people, and it's helped me a lot.
Is this a little like the old idea of counting to 10 before you react?
Yes,
Just
yeah.
take some time, take a little bigger view of what's going on. And you find that's easier for you than it used to be.
Yeah.
Colleen, anything you want to tell us about Ember that we don't know?
Yeah, I think what Ember was saying is that she really learned the impact of the choices that she was making, and that's a big piece of restorative practices. Is just, we all make choices, right, good or bad, but understanding the ripple of what that choice has on the others, and it helps build empathy. And when we have empathy, we're less likely to do harm because we can understand how the other person might react or feel towards the choices that we make. And that's something that I've watched Ember grow through this past year, and seeing and understanding, and meeting her after an altercation, and then having her be an ally with another group of girls that were in a fight, and really helping them step up to the plate and letting them know, like, you have to do this work to make it right.
Is there any attitude still that, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child, that, you know, some situations calls for a punitive approach?
I would say that there are teachers that I've worked with individually because they've had harm caused by a student. So once they get to participate in a dialogue or a conference with a student, their idea of what restorative justice is or restorative practices are shifts, and they want to know more, and they're hungry for the information.
Can you see a day when every high school graduate walks away with a toolbox that older people may not have for productively and creatively working with conflict?
Yes, I think I dream of the day, and I think it's going to take time, but I think we're to that point that we realize what we've been doing isn't working, and it's time to do something different because the school to prison pipeline is not working. We can't keep locking people up.
How has this work changed you?
I always could listen, but now I really hear what people have to say instead of actually making my judgment and assuming I know what's going to happen or what they've said. I actually hear and see the person for who they are. I really hope that people take away from this episode that it's about making things right and understanding the impact and being accountable for your actions. So we're all part of a larger community, and that we are responsible for that community. So we need to make it the strongest community it can be.
Colleen O'Sullivan of Resolve and Ember Wolf at Phoenix High School, thank you both for what you're doing, coming to tell us about it on Immense Possibilities.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
It's really incredible, the level of connection that we now have in our classroom, the way that other students support each other, the way they can call out and see when someone's having a bad day, and they know that our class is a safe place to bring that up, and or they'll know a way to be able to check in with them later. We're able to know each other better, and so we can read each other better. And that's what life is about.
That's Maria Scanelli, the Restorative Justice Coordinator for a group called Resolutions Northwest based in Portland. Maria joins us now along with Lene Riage Hayes, a student at Beaumont Middle School in Portland. Welcome to you both. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if we think of restorative justice as a collection of programs, are we missing the point here?
Absolutely. Restorative justice is a philosophy, and its approach to addressing relationships and harm, it's very difficult to understand what restorative justice is until you really experience it. From our perspective in approaching restorative justice in schools and in our communities, it's about taking accountability and looking the person in the eye that you have had a conflicted relationship with and making things better. And that is way harder than just going home for 2 days and coming back and not having had a conversation about what happened.
Lene Reage, what was going on for you when you first heard about restorative justice and this kind of work? Were you having any particular challenges at school?
One of the challenges I had was listening to the teachers and having communication with other students. So it really changed a lot over time, and it made me grow as a person.
If there's one way your experience with this has changed you and your outlook on things, what would it be?
Knowing people, knowing who I can actually come to and talk to, just knowing a lot of things about the community in general. So yeah.
How do you think it might have changed things outside of school, especially with your family?
Like, you can communicate better with your parents, your siblings, like anyone pretty much, because it really helps me really communicate with the sisters I have.
Has being involved with restorative justice given you any ideas about what you'd like to do with your life going forward?
I would like to work farther on this, just having to talk to other people, having people feel welcomed in the community and stuff.
Does Resolutions Northwest welcome volunteers from the community, even if they may not have very much related experience?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole point of this work is that community members, individuals, everyone is a part of it. So everyone's voice and input is vital to this work being meaningful. One of the principles of restorative justice, though, is do no further harm. And so when it comes to facilitating conversations and bringing people together in conflict, there is skill and practice that is needed in being able to have a conversation that's not going to make things worse. We offer ongoing series of trainings. Many of them are filled by the schools, communities that we're working with, but we're more than happy to be inclusive to other potentially interested volunteers.
Lene Reage, if someone out there is thinking, I'm not sure about all this. I think kids need to know that there's going to be some serious punishment if they really, really act out. What would you want to say to that person?
I'll say it's really not about the punishment, and it's more about the situation the person is in and how they can fix it and learn from the mistake they made. If I can learn from this, then anyone can learn from it, no matter if you're an adult or a kid, but some people it might be more challenging for.
Maria Scanelli is the Restorative Justice Coordinator for Resolutions Northwest. Lene Reage Hayes is a 7th grader at Beaumont Middle School and a member of the Youth Advisory Council there. Thank you both very much. Really appreciate the work you're doing and that you'd come share it with us here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for sharing.
Thank you.
It's been a good life for me, and I hope it's been a good life for all of you. That's important. But you can't make it happen all by yourself. You have to have good friends and family and be connected. That's the most important. It's very hard when you lose touch with people in your family. It'll mean so much to you later on in life. You do what you want to do, and within reason, you find that the whole family gets melded much better. It's great. Then if you try to give back to people what you get from people, that makes a big difference too. So remember that when I go, just remember that. Just have everybody, when you do, work what you do, have your friends and you welcome what they give and you want to give back. It's great. Well, I'm just lucky. And you know, if you feel happy about things, everything turns out better. I can't explain it, but it just makes you feel so good. That's everything in life. That makes life good.
And that's it for this edition of Immense Possibilities. You can find out more or send us suggestions to immensepossibilities.org, or visit our Facebook page and like and share us there. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Jeff Golden. Till next time, please do what you can do. Thanks for watching to learn about tonight's Immense Possibility. You can watch any of our past programs anytime at immensepossibilities.org.
The SOU House experience is really an opportunity for students to get out of the classroom and engage the community in solving real-world problems.
Houses are about a spirit of adventure. Maybe that's rafting or building a house, but it's also about the adventure of figuring out what comes next.
Get involved, make a difference in the world.
Get connected, join a house.